Sarah, go and see Sarah later on, or Joe, if I haven't remembered it properly. But anyway, if I embellish it, it doesn't matter. Would you like to see some flying pigfish? Would you? Yeah, you would, wouldn't you? Yeah. And she'd been building up saying, would you like to see flying pigfish? And they got so excited. So come on, I'm going to take you out to see some flying pigfish. I can't even say it. Flying pigfish. Anyway, she got out to wherever the flying pigfish were meant to be. And I think she said to them something, the words to the effect, April Fool. Was that right? Near enough. April Fool. But our poor children have been so looking forward to seeing this flying pigfish. And then the grandmother said, April Fool, isn't it funny? And the disappointment in them. Were there tears? I can't remember. There were tears. They had been so excited about I can't even say it. Flying pigfish. You can say it, can't you? Flying pigfish. They've been so excited about them. And then there were none. Yeah, it wasn't me. It was my mother-in-law. And poor things, they were disappointed. But, in today's story, the Bible story of reading that I've just read, the disappointment there was far greater than flying pigfish. This was devastating. This was despair. These ladies who had... Sorry, you're not going to be able to see this if you're sitting there. But you're going to have to... I'm going to need you back again in a minute. But look, these ladies, they had been desperate to see Jesus alive and bring about a new Israel. But instead, he was placed in a tomb. Look, we've even got a tomb here. Now this is just, look, there is, Ivan, can you come here? Can you have a look? See, is Jesus in here? Can you see him?
No.
Can you see him? No, he's not there. The tomb is only mud. The tomb is empty, isn't it? The tomb is empty. And these women were going to go to this tomb to anoint Jesus. They'd seen him on Good Friday being laid in this tomb. Okay? Seen him on Good Friday. He'd been laid in a tomb. They had some spices prepared to anoint his body with. And they, in great despair, were going to go and anoint his body with these spices. They were so sad. So they're going along really sad. They'd brought these special spices. They were unhappy. Jesus was their hope. He was going to bring spiritual revival. He was going to revive the nation of Israel. But they were so sad. And so they were going there in great sadness. Because you had to anoint the body with spices because it was a bit stinky. Because it was 3 days after his death. And they went to go and anoint his body. In Israel, in April, it can get quite hot and bodies can start smelling. So they went to go and anoint his body. They were very dedicated, but they had no faith that Jesus would be alive. No faith. They went there in despair. They thought he was dead in the tomb. Early Sunday morning, they left to go there. They hadn't believed Jesus' promises that he would rise from the dead. They hadn't believed them at all. But what we need to do today, we need to remember what Jesus has said. So I'm going to put this here. Number one, remember. This is what I'm talking about remembering. Remember. Excuse my writing. How does that happen? Oh no, we've got me in. Remember what? Do you think you can get rid of that, Andrew? Uh, we really don't want to hear me twice. So, no. So we want to remember what Jesus... Yeah, you don't want to hear me in double. Remember what Jesus has said. Now, Jesus has gone, they thought. They thought that he was dead in the tomb, okay? These ladies were despairing. Jesus was gone. But they got to the tomb, went inside. It was empty. Was the tomb empty there? It was. Only mud in that tomb. They went to the tomb and they saw an angel there. Dazzling light. This angel that was there, or two angels were there, dazzling them. In fact, in the Gospel of Matthew, it says they were like lightning. Could you imagine seeing someone there like lightning, the fear that it would bring upon you? The absolute fear. Someone like lightning is there. And this lightning angel says to them, why are you looking for the living amongst the dead? Why are you looking for the living amongst the dead? That's what he's saying to them today. And he's trying to get them to remember what Jesus has said. And in fact, he says here, he is not here, he is risen. Remember how he told you while he's still in Galilee that the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified. Always got to look out the window there. Jesus isn't out there either. He is risen. We've got to remember that Jesus has died, but has risen. This is what he said they need to remember. Can you remember what that verse was I told you earlier on, that I read from? Can anyone here remember? What was that verse I read earlier on? What chapter? 34. Round of applause, please. I'm very impressed. You know, we so easily forget, don't we? Do you not? I forget things so easily. I don't always remember things. And I think our brains are sometimes like sieves. These women had heard Jesus say that he's going to rise from the dead at least twice. In the Gospel of Luke, twice he says that he's going to die and rise from the dead. Did they take him seriously? No, they didn't. They did not take him seriously. I'm like that too at times. You know, I don't always listen. I glaze over. Sometimes, you know, I might be sitting, drinking a cup of coffee at home, reading my magazine, and Joe says to me, can you remember later on when the washing machine's finished to go and unload it and hang out the washing? And I nod my head and say, yes, I'll do it. Do I do it? No, I don't. I don't. But let's say later on that day, one of the things I do at home sometimes is train dogs, okay? And then what I do is I get a list of names, and when I have a list of names, I read them through 3 times, and I memorize them. And then when the different people come to have their dogs trained, I can remember all their names. Why is it that I remember their names, but when Joe tells me to hang the washing out, I forget? Why is it? What do you think? Maybe. Any other reasons why, you think? Thank you very much. Shall I tell you why? Because the people coming with their dogs are going to pay me money. Okay? Just being brutal. They're going to pay me money. So when I see the names, I think I need to remember them. Because I want to appear nice to them, don't I? And I want to say, hello, Mrs. Ponsonby Smythe. How nice to meet you today. You know, I want to remember their names. I look at it. And sometimes I can remember their names years down the line. They send me an email years later. I say, oh, yes, they came for training. I can't remember exactly what. I can remember their names. I make an effort because they're paying me. That's why I make an effort. It matters to me. And I should hang out the washing. I'm not saying that it isn't important, okay? I should hang out the washing. But the bigger point I'm making is... No, that is not the point. Please do not take that home with you later on. I don't want that. The point I'm trying to make is, and maybe this is being lost in the stories and the illustrations, the point I'm making is, Jesus' words are far more important we need to remember what he says. We need to take on board what Jesus is saying. And often you'll be sitting in church and half an hour later you'll have forgotten completely everything that's been said. Or sometimes I'm doing my Bible reading in the morning. By the end of the day, I cannot remember what my Bible reading was about. Isn't that terrible? We need to take the words of Jesus seriously. Those women, indeed, it's not a laughing matter. Those women, they had forgotten what Jesus had said. But the good news is, isn't it amazing though, even though they're forgetful women, isn't it amazing? Just think about this. Who did the angels come and see when Jesus was born? Who did the angels come see when Jesus was born? Yes. Well, no, when announcing the birth of Jesus. Who did the angels announce the birth of Jesus to? Shepherds. Shepherds. You were going to say shepherds, weren't you? Yeah. Shepherds. Shepherds were nobodies in the people of Israel at that time. They were nobodies. They were the lowest of the low. Shepherds were nobodies. In Jesus' time, in Israel, women were often considered as second-class citizens, nobodies. Isn't it interesting that the angels announced the most important news out to nobodies, to shepherds and to women? First of all, they said to the shepherds, Jesus is born. And then to the women, who society thinks isn't important, they say, Jesus is alive. The good news is announced. Even though they'd forgotten what Jesus had said or hadn't taken it seriously, they have the honor of hearing the good news. Isn't that good? Isn't that good that Jesus cares about, even when we're forgetful, even when we can't remember and don't believe him, he still speaks to us. Isn't that good news? Isn't it something to celebrate? And we're going to celebrate now and sing, we're going to have a bit more of a talk later on, but we're going to sing. Joe, do you want to lead jumping up and down? You do, don't you?